Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Bobby's Business Club, the chat show. Today we have one of our amazing members on the call, and he's going to be telling us not only all about his business, but all about how you can tame your IT monster. His name is Fil Strati. He's the founder of TechSeek. He is a networking extraordinaire. I see him around in networking events. I see him posting to support other networking events, to bring people to those events, to help you build your business. Networking is about creating connections with people who you like, know, and trust, as we hear that quite a lot. And this is one of the reasons why we create the chat show, is so people can understand Phil's business, understand what he's trying to do and how he supports his customers. Phil, the floor is yours, mate. Take it away. Looking forward to learning how I can tame my IT monster, because it drives me around the bloody bend. So the floor is yours, my friend. Really looking forward to it. Take it away.
No worries. Thanks, Bobby. So you can hear me, so it looks like we're good to go.
All good to go.
No worries. So I just want to sort of run through about TechSeek. So we started back in 2006, initially offered a break-fix model, but we found that traditional break-fix model was limited, especially when talking to clients when we were going to visit new clients. One of the questions we've been asking them is in regards to what are the reasons that they no longer want to work with the current company or the current tech provider. And some of the things were the fact that that tech provider was sometimes not available, either because they were a one-man band or they had health issues or whatever the case was, but it started to create some uncertainty about whether they could rely on that person. The other side of the coin was that they would sometimes grow to a point where they stop servicing businesses of that size. So you'd hear words like they've outgrown us or they've outpriced us. So essentially, we developed our own business model in order to better service the small business market. And so we service anywhere between 2 to 3 staff and 50 staff. And basically, as we started to do that, it created reoccurring income for us and also allowed us to scale the business. So we then, just before the major lockdown, hired our first employee, got them up to working full time, and then the second one during the pandemic. So obviously, for some businesses, the workloads kind of diminished, but for us, it kind of went, on its head, because a lot of business owners were then pushed to go from their traditional in-house model to be working from home. So suddenly everyone needed remote access, and how are they going to collaborate, communicate, and whatnot now that they weren't able to get into the office? So we needed more manpower essentially to help us get through all those tickets and transitions to help our clients continue running their business. I myself have transitioned into more of a business development and leadership role, and we're looking to hire another tech by the end of the year. But the whole idea, which has been great, me moving into this role, is that because I'm not in a reactive role as such anymore, I can venture out and actually speak to some of our suppliers and see and find out about new products that are available that we can then go back and offer our clients. So the idea is still providing support, but on a different level to those specific clients, whether it's things like, who should they speak to for cyber protection insurance? What backup options are there? What antivirus protections are there? Are there better products out there? Are there better solutions for collaboration, communication, whatnot? So why is our support unique? So like I said, we kind of created our own model. So in-house staff, which I guess is quite important now with the whole the whole Optus the pandemic and the whole Optus thing. People are worrying about the fact that, well, where is my data being stored? And one of the things early on for us was that we wanted to employ in-house staff. So a lot of tech companies start off on their own as a one-man band or one-person band, and then put on subcontractors, or they'll hire offshore staff. And the problem for me was that we can't control whether they have adequate antivirus on their computers, where they're storing those passwords, what they're doing with those passwords. So in our case, having the in-house staff gives people peace of mind that the company data and the credentials that they're supplying us get kept in-house with our staff. The other one is in-person support. So a lot of clients are actually thankful at the fact that we come out to them. So there are some IT companies that do just remote only, and we provide remote only services maybe to people that are interstate or overseas. But in this case, it's a case of, if you've got several issues, you don't want to be sort of fixing your computer and then passing on the phone to the next person, the next person. We want to be able to just go, look, you know what? Everyone's got issues at your office. Let's send someone out. And being a small business owner, they like that face-to-face communication, that interpersonal sort of relationship. So that's a big one for us. The other one is rolling hours. So the fact that a customer can buy hours from us doesn't mean that they need to use those hours that month. So a lot of small business owners, the reason that the traditional managed services model didn't work for them was that we're paying all this money and we don't need you all the time. So what we've done with our model is said, look, you can start at even an hour a month, but if you don't use that hour, it keeps rolling over. So people can bank them away and then use them, essentially when they're in trouble, or when they have to hire a new staff member or whatever reason, those hours are banked up and they're not having to call us out just for the sake of it. And the fourth one being no lock-in contracts. So we don't lock you into a 3-year term. We don't have a minimum term. It's literally just a 30-day notice that you need to give us and you can jump straight out. So there's no big, long proposals and big monthly commitments that you need to get locked into, essentially. So when we meet with new business owners, there's kind of a 3-step process. The first one being the audit. So we go out on site and we don't charge for this process. We ask them things like number of staff, PCs and laptops and tablets, like number of devices to gauge how much support we're needing. We'll ask them the primary software and subscriptions that they're using, whether it's say Office 365 or Google Workplace or Xero or Salesforce, whatever the case is. We'll ask them about who their web hosts are. Are they using, what sort of platform are they building their website on? Are there service providers that are premium, like your Office 365 and Google Workspace? Are they storing data in the cloud? All of those sort of questions, so that we can build a picture about what type of security or what type of software solutions are in place and whether we are actually a fit for each other. And also, yeah, phones, internet providers, whether they're traditional phone system, using a VoIP system, all that sort of stuff. Then we consult them, and part of this is basically a cost analysis as well, because a lot of clients come to us and say, I've got this bill from my IT provider, but I don't really know what half of it means. There's a lot of I wouldn't say inflation, but there's a lot of line items that people use that are kind of a bit ambiguous about what they're for. And so people pay them just thinking, well, if I don't pay it, I'm not going to be protected or not going to be covered. So we go through that bill and we try and decipher whether they are legitimate costs, or they're for services that maybe they don't need anymore. Or maybe they're things like, initially they had 27 Microsoft licenses, but they've scaled their business down and no one's gotten rid of those licenses. Or they've got something like Dropbox, but they transitioned to Office 365 where they have a terabyte of storage, but they're still using Dropbox storage and paying that additional fee. So that's helping them cut costs down, helping them understand and recognize what software they're using and whether there are subscriptions in place that they're still paying for that they don't actually need. Having adequate password management. So making sure that, for starters, everyone has internet security installed on their machines. A lot of clients might have staff that are bringing their computers from home. They have their own antivirus, they let it lapse, it's not being covered. There are things like customers or clients don't know how to check who has access to specific files. So if they're using a cloud storage provider like Dropbox or SharePoint or Google Drive, they haven't really gone in to check, well, hey, have I got previous staff still connected to this, or external subcontractors that we use that were still connected to this? How do I check? How do I know? Have people changed roles where they don't need access that they did before? So there's no auditing really taking place in terms of where are we at with staff access. Ensuring your domain and hosting. So in regards to this, it's a case of that you can actually access it. So a lot of the times somebody will pay an external provider to buy their domain name, pay for their hosting. They end up registering that domain name through the external provider's email address. So they don't know who is the person they bought their domain name through. They don't know whether that same company is the one that's hosting their website. They don't know the login credentials for their website. So it becomes a bit of a discovery session for us, but it helps the customer realize that they don't really have any control. And this is why we talk about taking back control of your IT. We don't want to be the gatekeeper to this information. We want to say, look, you need to know this stuff. You need to know whether you've got access. And if you don't, we want to help you get that access back, because the last thing you want to do if your website goes down or your emails stop coming through is running around trying to work out who actually set all this stuff up, whether they're still available, whether they're still contactable, all that sort of stuff. And obviously, the main one is implementing a backup solution. So making sure that we actually know what you're backing up, when it's being backed up, where it's being backed up. Again, a lot of business owners will say, yes, I have a backup process in place, but that's where it kind of all stops. They can't tell me anything more than that. So programs change, people change, files change. We'd have to constantly check to make sure that those updates, those changes and updates are actually being implemented in the backup schedule as well. Otherwise, you could be backing up, what you think is everything, and then find out when you've lost that data that you can't get it back. And then once we go through that whole process, we start onboarding if the customer decides to go ahead with applying for our membership. And we'll take in details like, your 365 credentials, your server credentials, logging into those devices and verifying that storage, logins for printers, scan to email options, credentials for modems, all that sort of stuff, because we want to know that we have the stuff on hand to get you back up and running as soon as something goes down. Not sort of relying on you to run around, like a headless chicken, panicking that you can't find, you don't know who set it up or what company or whatnot. So that's that process. Yes, and if you want to as well, we can help you transfer the domain name and the hosting to us, because a lot of clients feel more comfortable with the fact that one company's looking after everything for them. So the industries we work with, so we've got law firms, accounting practices, dental practices, childcare centers, constructions and trades, panel beaters, NDIS support agencies, which is starting to be quite a up and coming one. And again, specifically with them, they tend to start off with a small amount of people and then grow quite rapidly. And the compliance of their IT kind of goes out the window. You're in this kind of like panic state because you're growing quickly. You've got to put a staff member on, and then you kind of don't really think twice about which laptop you buy, whether it's been, whether the data is being encrypted, whether it's got antivirus on it, whether there's two-factor applied to the email account. Everything just kind of gets done so you can just quickly get that staff member on. And so our goal is to basically go, look, let us help you make sure that there is some level of consistency and compliance when it comes to setting up these devices, so that you don't, run into trouble if there is a compromise of such. So 3 to 50 office staff, again, so that's the kind of sweet spot for us that we look after, and that's what our membership tailors for. And we're located in Essendon North, so we like to look after the North and West, but obviously during COVID, we picked up a lot of customers in the other states, and that's fine because we can give them remote-only support. And if need be, we can get someone hands-on to help them, on the rare occasion that they need someone in person there. So going back to the cyber attacks. So in 2022, ransomware attack occurs every 11 seconds. Industry shot up 20 billion last year. So basically, Australia revealed that mobile ransomware attacks are also up by 33%. So they're starting to attack pretty much every device you've got, whichever is more vulnerable and whichever one you're more likely to sort of fall victim to. Phishing, hacking, and remote access scam, which I'll go into. They're ongoing concerns as well. Remote access scams are becoming probably one of the ones that they targeted most during COVID, because everyone was trying to access their stuff, their servers and computers remotely, and they weren't really taking the right measures to make sure that those connections were secure. It was more a case of, we just need to get staff working, so we're just going to do it whichever, apply whatever band-aid fix we have for the time being and worry about the security later. So brute force attacks, you'll hear this a lot. So it's essentially someone trying to barge their way in through a door, and you've got a combination on your door being your username and password, and they're just going to keep trying one password after the other, after the other, after the other. It's usually a piece of software that does that. And they'll pretty much keep going until they force their way in. And that's why we say to people, don't put password one, don't put admin and all that, or a blank password or all that sort of crap, because, if someone does try to brute force their way into that connection, that's going to be a matter of seconds before they can get in. Obviously, criminals and, well, everyone can really get access to these programs now, but they will try these password 1, 2, 3, like I said, until they can get in. And this is why we implemented two-factor authentication. So a lot of those remote access connections, there is a piece of software called Duo, which again was free. We offered it to our clients during the pandemic. It essentially sets up two-factor authentication so that they can remote in and use their crappy password if they want to, but then they're prompted with a screen and they need to approve the connection from their phone. So, and we could tell people were trying to hack in because people were getting requests to approve connections, at 11 o'clock at night when they weren't even on their computer. So people are trying to get through. It's just a case of, what else can I do? What else can I do to try and, protect the connection? Unfortunately, when you do things like, enable remote access, it's like you got to kind of look at it like you're opening up a small little window in your house. So it allows you to get in, but it also can allow other people to get in as well. So you've got to factor that in and weigh that up as well. Yeah, it's not 100% proof, but I guess at least it's another layer of protection. So it's like putting another lock on your door. People can still cut the bolt, and still get in, but it's still slowing them down. So this is the other one, phishing attacks. So phishing attacks are usually somebody trying to impersonate a company, usually Microsoft Office. That's the quite common one now. Telling you things like, quick, hurry up, your password's going to expire, or quick, you're, running out of space, click here, click here. And there's usually an embedded link, in this case being Renew. They can do it using your own email account if they're able to hack into your email, but they're usually using, in this case, because they're trying to impersonate Microsoft, they'll buy a domain name that's similar. And you can see here, msncenter.us. This is the reason for the whole concern about the .au domains, because what was happening, for example, we're techseek.com.au. Someone can go and register a domain called techseek.com.au, something like that, and try and use that, and people won't look twice. But now, because of this .au domain, someone that has, for example, if we don't register techseek.au, someone else can use that, and looks even more legitimate, more reason to click on that link. So there has to be some level of vigilance with clicking on these links, but we just tell customers flat out, just don't click on any links. A target or targets contacted via email, telephone, text. So these can be via other methods as well. So text messages, you'll see the links like sometimes in relation to this, or they'll say, click here to click my picture, or look at this, or, check out our new role. One thing we do to kind of warn our customers is every few months we send out a mass text message that says, check out our new office. And it has a link there, and then it sends them to a LinkedIn article that we wrote saying you should have known better, and it educates them on, not clicking on these links. So I get a lot of bad responses now saying you're a bastard, Phil, because essentially they're going, look, I trust you, you're my IT provider, you shouldn't be sending me this stuff, but there's no guarantee that it is me sending that stuff. So unfortunately, it doesn't work really well now when I try to actually genuinely market to them, but they've all become more vigilant as a result. And that's the important thing, because you can have as many locks as you want on your door. But if you're still going to open that door for that person, you're still going to get compromised. So obviously, yeah, you click on this link. Generally what happens is they ask you to log in, and they get your login credentials. So they'll get, and then from there, they can access your email and send emails on your behalf and infect other people, essentially. So the common types, like we were talking about before, your mailbox is full, click here to increase your storage. Your domain's expired, click here to renew. Click here to download your invoice. Your account's been hacked, click here to reset your password. You've all seen these before. And when we're in the sort of heat of it, like we're really busy, we're stressed with work, and we see it, we just click and do it. We don't think twice. So we just have to sort of take that step back and go, is this really my domain name registrar? Is this really coming from my web host? Look at the domain name at the top that it's coming from, because it's less likely that they've been hacked and someone is emailing on their behalf. It's more likely that someone has bought a domain name that looks similar, and they're trying to, represent them in a dodgy way, basically. Your account's been blocked. Click here to verify your details. We get emails from clients saying, "Is this a hoax?" And we reply back, "Yes, it's definitely a scam." And we encourage that as well. If you're not sure, ask us. Malicious email rule creation. So when you do click on that link, so that other particular email that said, "Hey, you're running out of space, click here," they'll go in and they'll set up rules. You won't see the rules in Outlook, but you will see them online. So particularly with Office 365, you'll see rules that says, if anyone mentions the words, virus or infected or whatever, move that email from that person straight to the deleted messages, or move it to junk. I've even seen one where they've created a new folder called just full stop, and it's hidden just at the bottom, and they just throw everything in there. So everyone's trying to warn you, hey, you've been hacked, but you don't see those responses because the rule is created to basically stop processing those messages. So, you can see some of them here. It says if the message was received by, delete the message and stop processing more rules. So it even overrides all your other messages as well. So that's quite a common one, where if a person gets their email hacked, the first thing we do is, do they have any email forwarding in place? So is the email being forwarded to an external address? Are there rules created, which there likely are? And can we quickly reset the password? A lot of people just go and reset their password, but the rules are still in place or the external email address is still in place. Office 365 do a great thing where by default, you can't forward to an external address. So that stops that problem. But people who have cPanel email, so your cheapy type POP and IMAP accounts, you can't block that. So they quickly get in, set up an external address, and then you do things like, well, they've hacked my PayPal. I'm going to reset my password. That password reset goes back to you, gets forwarded again to the external address. They reset it again and they think, what's going on? Why do they keep getting back in again? So it's looking at those things, not just changing your password. So again, with two-factor authentication, basically an extra layer of security used for online banking software. You can use it for everything now, essentially. Xero is obviously implemented, so all the accounting software has been implemented with it now. You can do it for your email as well. We have a password vault and we use it for that as well. So it's like, what more could I do? But like I said before, if you're going to open the door anyway, doesn't really matter how many locks you have on it. These are the three types of authenticators. So something so usually a secret question or a password is the common one that we used to have. Your mobile phone or security token, which we tend to use quite commonly now. And the other one is your fingerprint or using facial recognition. Again, facial recognition is going to stop the person, but if someone tells you you need to click here because you're running out of space and you put your face in there or you use your security token, you still let them in to your emails. It's not going to stop them if you're not going to, pay attention to whether the thing looks dodgy or not. So are you backing up? So this is the other thing we want to discuss, because if you get a ransomware infection, which we'll talk about after as well, that's all good and well. We can get rid of it, but where are the files? Are they being backed up? So this is the biggest misconception. So Google Drive, Dropbox, OneDrive, you've heard of all these ones. They're not cloud backup solutions. They're cloud storage solutions. So they're not in the cloud and safe. They're an active directory that you're constantly working out of. So if you get a virus infection or a ransomware or malware, and it jumps across and infects those files, those changes are going to be uploaded to the cloud. Now, a lot of these programs now are starting to implement like a rewind feature where you can roll back. But again, it's not a backup solution. It's something for you it's a centralized data access location, where it's great. It's cloud storage. It's somewhere you can get from anywhere, but it's not cloud backup. So the biggest thing we kind of discuss or make our clients aware of is that don't confuse the two. And so we use a program called mainly AFI, and iDrive. So AFI connects directly to your Office 365 or your Google Drive, your Google Workspace environment, and backs up all the email accounts, the SharePoint directories, or the Google Drive directories to an external location and in Melbourne, which means that, for people that have data that's sort of patient sensitive, like dental clinics and doctor surgeries, they need to have their data backed up in a data center within Australia. So that's great. And the great thing with these as well is that you don't have to back up every single email. So you can literally back up, the 3 CEOs email, the CEO and the two IC, whatever it is, right? Or you can say, I don't want to back up any of my emails. I don't really care. It's more the stuff that's in SharePoint that's important. And you can set it to, it'll basically do an online backup again, which doesn't show up any of your data because you're not uploading those files. It's grabbing them from the cloud, backing them up 3 times a day. And you can always go back and you get kind of like a calendar view where you can choose and go, right, we were okay up until Thursday. Let's restore everything from Wednesday or Thursday. So that's that option. iDrive doesn't back up the cloud stuff. It backs up, if you've got things on your desktop or your documents or specific programs that are only on your computer or on your server, iDrive will back up to the cloud. Now, the other important thing that iDrive does, this is located overseas. So again, it depends on the client. But the important thing is it also encrypts the backup as well. So you're not just putting raw files as they are into the cloud, we're encrypting them as well. And you can also implement your 2-factor authentication to access this account as well. So this is the other one we get asked as well, incremental and differential. Incremental backup is only the data that's changed. And this is great because it backs up whatever changes you make, which means you're not doing a full backup each time and you're not having to kill all your uploads, your upload limit if there is a limit in place with your internet provider. So if you've got 500 gig worth of data, you don't want to be doing a 500 gig transfer every night. Then you've got, so again, great for regular backups, data being used to the cloud. differential backups to the full. So some clients will say, can I do a full backup to an external hard drive that I take off site, or can I do full backups once a week to 2 different drives that I swap? I bring one in and I take one off site, and then can I have a incremental backup that gets done in the cloud every night? So really, the backup solutions, you can do as many or as little as you want. And again, whether you choose to have cloud only or a combination of the two. In the case of things like if your files are on Google Drive or SharePoint, some of these programs don't work. They can't actually pull the files out of those directories because they're set up with specific permissions so that you as a user are the only person that can access them. So they don't work in that sense. And that's why we have sometimes a combination of iDrive and AFI, or iDrive on the server and AFI for the cloud-based storage. So again, it's case-by-case basis. Yeah, this one's another one too. Don't leave your backup drive connected. Too many people have a backup drive they bought from Officeworks, they plug it in, and we set up a backup solution and they leave it connected. And some of them we don't set up an encrypted backup. They want an option where they don't need software to restore the data. They just want to be able to plug in that drive to another laptop if it goes down and keep working. And that's okay, but don't leave the drive connected, because if you get a virus and you get a ransomware infection where all those files become encrypted, it's going to go and jump across to that external hard drive and do the same thing there. So that's a problem as well. So if you do a backup, if you do it every day or once a week, whenever you want, disconnect the drive from the computer. So this is the questions that I want you to pretty much ask your IT provider or yourself if you don't have one. What software is being used to back up my data? Can you tell me what files are being backed up? When's the last time it was reviewed? Where is my data being backed up to? An external hard drive, a NAS, which is a network access storage device, similar to a server, or is it in the cloud? If my data is being backed up in the cloud, is the data center located in Australia or overseas? So again, depending on whether you're a dental clinic or a medical practice, you need to know these questions. Like I said, yeah, they're going to be cheaper, but you have to see, are there restrictions in place, or is there some sort of compliance in place for your industry? So we need to look at that as well. When's it scheduled for? Days per week, times. Some people don't know even what time. I can give you a good example of a client we went to audit before we took over. Their backups were being swapped over. Someone was designated to swap them over. No one knew how to check whether they were working. And when we got into the software, we found that the backups had been failing for 6 months. And that's because the drives were full. So no one was told how to delete the drives. There wasn't a process for the backup software to delete previous versions. So again, if you don't know, there's no guarantee just by swapping those things over. The other one was, and that was for a dental clinic. The other one was for a real estate agent who was swapping the drives over, but had one of those, the bigger types of drives that usually need the power cable plugged in as well. But there was a button to turn it on and no one was turning it on. So again, no backups were taking place. It's just good that they got the audit, but they assume and they leave it in the responsibility of someone else, which is fine, but there was no review being done regularly. And we sort of say, if you want to every quarter, get back in touch with us and get us to check and get the guys to verify that, you do have the right backup solution still in place. It's working, that you can check it, that it's on the right time, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I guess some of them will give you an email as well. Can you log into it? Can you get a backup log? All that stuff is great because we can't be chasing you every week saying, hey, do your backups. We try to warn people as much as possible, but use that time with us if you need to basically see if you don't understand how they work or how to find out if they've been successful, get in touch with us. So these are just 2 case studies, very similar, but they both had NAS drives. So NAS drives is essentially, it's like an external hard drive with a network cable in the back, and it's an alternative to having a server. It runs its own software, and you can set up privileges to say, this person's user account can't access this particular file, and so on and so forth. The problem with them is that they have their own software, and if that firmware is not updated on a regular basis, people find ways to exploit them. And there's been 2 cases with this particular brand of NAS drive where they had an option for you to remotely access those files, and somebody brute forced their way in, now that we know what brute forcing is, and they got access to the files, and then they injected some ransomware. So incremental backup that was taking place to an external hard drive. An additional hard drive was installed and taken off site when not in use. Drives were swapped over on a weekly basis. The customer's NAS drive had remote access, like we said. Ransomware virus was injected, causing all files to be encrypted. So all the file names stay the same, but the extension at the end, instead of .doc or .xls being a Word or an Excel document, they change to crypto.zip. And people try to unzip them, but that doesn't work. It's just whatever file that they've done to basically encrypt them. And then they essentially ask you for a that's why they call ransomware. They'll say, pay us, I don't know, 150,000 in Bitcoin by this time and we'll unlock your files. Now, the problem with this is that there's no guarantee that they will unlock your files. There are some antivirus vendors that have tools that you can use to decrypt some of the older encryption or the older ransomware encryption software that's in use or circulating. But also, you need to be relying on your backups. And the other thing being as well that if you do pay the ransom and they release your data, they also know that you're good for the money, essentially. So they're going to go and try and target you again to try and extort you again, basically. And that's why you see these these big companies dealing with federal police and cyber protection authorities and stuff like that. And they have to work out whether they actually pay the ransom or not, because it's a bit of a balancing act as to, do we really need the data back? If we do get the data back, what can we do to implement security better? Is it really going to be better? Have they done something to ensure that they have access again? So it's a bit of a difficult situation to be in. But in this case, because they were doing an incremental backup, the backup software was backing up any files that had changed, not removing the current backup and replacing it. So what it done was, let's say there's a file called, Bobby's business presentation .pptx, which is PowerPoint, right? Those files got encrypted. So now it says Bobby's, business presentation .crypto.zip. So it was adding it next to that file rather than replacing it. So in this case, we're able to go into that external hard drive, find everything with that extension, delete it, and still have the original files from the day before there. So they were saved in that circumstance. Same with another plumbing company. NAS drive as well, had access remotely. Ransomware virus was injected again. Changed them to .bolt. Straight away, okay, so it's changed the file extension, it's a ransomware. They had a cloud backup solution that was doing incremental backups. And as soon as we found out about this, we quickly tried to stop any future backups from taking place. But when we got in touch with the cloud provider, they could see on there that the files weren't replaced, they were just added to, because it saw that they were different names. So essentially it couldn't replace them. Again, same thing, we're able to search, remove them, and the customer's back up and running. It's not always the case, but these are two, great turnouts for us. It's just going to get better and better at doing things to stop us from being able to get the stuff back. So again, if we have a backup that's external, and it's rotated maybe on a monthly basis or a weekly basis, at least we have something that's untouched, that's outside of the network. So again, it's another thing you should be looking at. Like I said before, there's no guarantee they're going to come back for more. Obviously, everyone knows about Optus and the $1.5 billion. So anybody can get hacked, and it's about going, what can I do to sort of, what's within my control, and what can I do to try and at least, reduce 80 to 90% of it. But, no matter how big you are, you're not going to be safe from this sort of stuff. It's like, what can I do to try and, reduce the risk? So how can you protect yourself? So if you have a NAS drive, ensure the firmware is updated regularly. Ensure all PCs and notebooks are covered with an internet security solution. So not your free shitty antivirus you downloaded, which probably comes with ransomware, malware itself, but something that has both antivirus, firewall, anti-spam, all those sort of tools in there. So they'll usually call them an internet security solution, not just antivirus. Adequate passwords. So yes, get rid of your password one. So put something a little bit more, especially for those remote access connections. But also, if your computer gets stolen, you don't want someone easily just typing in password and getting into your computer, taking your company data and all that sort of stuff, because you are responsible as an employee as well, and you should really be putting something a bit more than, your dog's name and, your date of birth. Like we keep saying, be vigilant. Two-factor is not going to help you if you're just going to put in the code anyway. Ensure your Windows 10 and 11 updates are installed. The great thing with Windows 10 and Windows 11, you don't need to pay someone like us to sit there and do patch updates. It just updates itself. So does your antivirus. And that's kind of why I don't really sell the whole managed services model to small business owners, because usually your products are updating themselves these days. Given the fact that we all have internet now, I don't have to send a staff member out with a USB stick with Windows 7 Service Pack 1 to make sure you're all updated. So that's great. Doing the updates are great. Macs as well. Anyone that says Macs are special, they don't get viruses is full of it. They get viruses too. They're just different ways, and they can still get their emails hacked and all that sort of stuff. So they're not safe either, and we can put antivirus for them as well. Android phones. So a lot of Android and iPhone devices usually you'll see that there are some antivirus solutions on the market, but they're not programs the same as what you'd have on your PC or your Mac. They don't have an on-access scanner where they're always looking. A lot of them have restrictions because of the way the software's been made. It doesn't allow what they call root access to the directories. So usually they're safer in the sense that they'll keep releasing updates. So if you've got a recent phone, like my Samsung's constantly getting updates or annoying me that needs to put a new update, you just do them. Because they've probably found security flaws and they're updating them for you. So there's not so much a need. There are some malware scanners and antivirus scanners you can run to check whether the apps themselves that you're downloading, the third-party apps, may be a problem. But the hope is that before they go on the App Store or the Play Store, they also are quality controlled. But there have been ones that have been known to be a bit malicious. So do those updates. Yes, don't click on links in emails. If I have to keep telling people, change your password unless I haven't mentioned already. So obviously we keep talking about passwords because yes, you can have the two-factor and everything, but passwords are the best way to keep people out. Again, something that you can remember but would be difficult for others to crack. So you're finding that even websites, when you try to register an account these days, they're not letting you get away with just a quick, my name's Bobby and my password's Bobby1. They're gonna must have characters, must have, cannot have numbers in a series like 1, 2, 3, all that sort of stuff. And you can see here, series numbers, admin or admin 1, 2, 3, password 1, 2, 3, your company name. Making sure you use a combination of upper and lowercase characters. Don't use your name, your business name, your children's pet's name. Definitely not that password one that everyone bloody uses. It comes up by the dodgy antivirus program that they installed when they installed their other free software. So again, making your staff familiar with this is the icon. Make sure you can see it in the bottom right-hand corner. Making sure you can see that it's actually active. Do you know if it's active? Has it expired? Are you getting messages you don't understand? All that sort of stuff. Staff training on phishing and malware risk management. So like we talked about, you can send those text messages out. You can talk about it in a board meeting. You just need to make people aware of what to look for those particular emails. And compulsory login and password complexity requirements. So not letting people use, password one with a capital P and an exclamation mark. So that sort of stuff is important as well. Data encryption for your PCs become quite popular. And so there is a free piece of software called BitLocker, and that comes with Windows 10 Pro. So if you don't have Windows 10 Pro, you pay about 160, 70 bucks to upgrade, but you can implement BitLocker, and it essentially encrypts the entire drive. So for us, everyone that works for us must have their computer, obviously with antivirus, but all their computers or laptops that access our devices or network or anything have BitLocker on them, meaning that if a staff member wants to work at home and they take their laptop home and they lose it on the way home, or it gets stolen or whatever the case, you can't take out that hard drive and actually extract that data. So even though we're using a password vault, sometimes when we're implementing a new system for a customer, we might just put a few notes in a notepad, and that's going to be saved on the desktop. So we worry, look, maybe we can't control that either. So let's encrypt the data so that it can't be extracted, because it's your company data and passwords that we have in our possession. So basically the biggest issue with the BitLocker is people actually don't know their BitLocker password as well. So BitLocker has two long keys, and I've forgotten the name of them, but basically it generates these two big long keys. They can be stored in your Microsoft account, but we store them also in our password vault. And again, that means that if you need to extract the data for any reason because you haven't done a backup, because you haven't been listening to me, essentially we can go into the vault and unlock that device so that we can pull the data out. So that's another option as well. Online password vaults, which I've been talking about, LastPass, Keeper, Dashlane. We usually implement LastPass. We've loved how that works. You've got the two-factor authentication. If you try and log in from another device or another location, it'll send you an email to make sure it was you. So it's giving someone the password to it is simply not enough for people to get in. So it's a great program that we've implemented. We can share those. You can share between other LastPass users, and we can, staff get access to, you can restrict what staff have access to which clients, all that sort of stuff. This is another one I want to share as well. So have I been pawned? So essentially, some of you may have seen this. You can jump on your computer and try this out after the meeting, but you type this in and you type in either your mobile number or your email address, and it will tell you which sites your credentials have been leaked from. So for example, if you registered for, say, Facebook, and Facebook had a breach, so back in the day, they didn't really have to tell you straight away that they had a breach, or you signed up for Canva, or you signed up for whatever it is, whatever program you're using. If at some point that was breached and those files were made, or those credentials were made available possibly on the dark web, this will tell you whether it was breached. And so again, you can go, oh, you know what? I'm probably still using that same password from back then, so maybe I should update it. And what tends to happen as well is when these passwords get sold on the dark web, people will come and basically try and scare the crap out of you so that you'll comply with any demands they have. So for example, you get clients saying, I've got this email and it says they're recording me watching porn, and they're going to, I don't know, they're going to out me as, I don't know, doing this and that, whatever it is, right? There's an SMS or an email that comes out, and we say, we know because we have your password. And they'll show them their password, and they'll completely shit themselves and say, what's happened? I don't really know what's happening. What they've probably done is they've extracted your password or bought those credentials from another site that was leaked. And then they're showing you that password. And sometimes it's probably, I'll say to customers, is that your current password, or is that one you might have used in the past? And it's usually like, it's similar to my current password. So of course, because we have a password called TechSeek01, and then we change it to 848586. We just keep changing the numbers. So we go, oh my God, they know part of my password, but it's in most cases, it's because they've obtained those details somewhere else. So they're using that password that they've obtained from that website that's been leaked as another way to increase, I guess, the validity of their claim, just to be able to out you or hack you or whatever the threat is, basically. So you can check on here, but at the end of the day, just change your passwords. So that's the actual website there, haveibeenpawned.com, so PWNED. The other thing as well is your website. So we check this a lot. So you can see the website there. It's whois.auda.org.au. It only works on Australian websites. There are ones for .coms as well. But essentially, this is me running a report on techseek.com.au, and it tells you here that the registrant contact email is contact us at TechSeek. Now, the reason this is important is because if my website goes down or something happens to my domain name expires or whatever, they need to send an email. For starters, if your domain is due for renewal, they will send it to this email address. So some people start off a business with bobby123@gmail.com, and then you create the bobbysbusinessclub.com.au, right? But your domain was originally registered with that other email address, and then you get rid of that email address, or you stop using it, or you forgot the password for it. And so you don't get any of those emails in regards to the domain going down. And so the domain expires, and then you can't access it. And it's probably expired so far that it can get sold off, because they have a grace period of maybe 1 or 2 months, and then they make it available again. So either that can happen, or you go, right, I'm just going to quickly jump in and update it. Well, I can't log in because I don't have the credentials. So you call the domain name registrar. So in this case, it's Instra. You can see at the top, the registration URL. Instra, I need access. Well, we'll send you a password reset email to your email. I don't have that email anymore. So you can see why this gets difficult. So that's the first thing to do. Go, okay, well, I don't actually have I'm not the registrant contact and nor is my technician. So I need to get this fixed. And there's no reason your technician has to have that email. If you want it changed, get them to change it. So the other ones are really not important. Tech contact email and all this other crap, not important. It's more the registrant contact name and more importantly, the email address. The name server down here talks about who's the one that controls the flow to your website and your email and stuff like that. That's stuff that we'll look at if there's issues with emails not going through or things like that, or your website not loading up. But this is the most important one because that's kind of the gatekeeper at the top that says, I'm the person to contact if there's a problem with the website or if you need to get access to the website. If your website's built on WordPress, ensure that you're taking offline backups. So a lot of WordPress websites actually, well, most of the ones that are decently priced, I don't know about the cheap and nasty ones, they usually have online backup for 7 days. But again, if you get a virus in your WordPress site, sometimes those backups can get infected. So there are apps you can, or plugins that you can install on WordPress that allow you to take a backup of the website and again, download it and put it somewhere else so that if it gets hacked, you can pretty much just reload the new website back on there. Make sure that you're updating plugins. So with a WordPress site, the reason they get hacked is the WordPress version has not been updated, or the plugins which allow you to add extra functionality, whether it's like a contact form or a bookings form or whatever, they're not being supported by that developer. So there are holes in there, vulnerability holes, and basically people exploit them and then they hack in and put all sorts of crap on your homepage, or they might do things like redirect your page to somewhere else, or give people a link to click on so they can get infected with the virus as well. So making sure someone can do that for you as well. Usually your web developer, but again, we can help you with that as well. Or we can liaise with the web developer saying, look, this is a problem. But even if they are not, even if it is poorly managed, it doesn't really matter as long as you've got that backup. It's more a case of if you're a very big website that you rely heavily on that traffic and your reputation is at stake, then maybe you want to be making sure you can do those updates regularly because you don't want to wait for your customers to tell you, hey, the homepage looks completely different. So that's another thing to consider. Registrant contact we talked about, and the whois, that's the other domain for if you've got a .com domain. So it's whois.com/whois. You put in your name, you put in the captcha code below it, and it will tell you that same thing. And you'll see that same sort of layout. Look for the registrant contact email and verify that it's actually you and that it's a valid address that you have access to. So again, we talk about 3 or more staff that like an audit. We do free audits. We'd love an introduction. We say better than devil, because a lot of our clients tend to stick with the same IT provider, even though they're starting to get to a point where they don't really trust what they're saying, or they're trying to be forced into a direction they don't like, or put stuff in place that they don't think they actually need. Get us in to have a talk to you, and we can sort of give you a second opinion to see whether really we're moving in a direction that suits you as a business. That's pretty much it for me.
Mate, that was jam-packed full of great content, great action points for us to take away. I was writing down notes thinking, I've got to do that, I've got to do that, I've got to do that. I love the video. It's definitely very British and very obviously that resonates across the world with how people set up their passwords. But mate, bang on with the presentation. So much content in there. And this is what we need to be able to do. We need to be able to go to experts like Phil to be able to help us. So we don't have to be an expert in everything in our business. And so if you'd like an introduction to Phil, either the contact details will be in the description of this video, or you can reach out to me and I can do an introduction for you, or you can obviously reach out to Phil with the details on the screen. But thanks so much, mate. You are a powerhouse in the industry, and I'm glad that you're in my network and I can reach out to you, and I know that you're an expert in the field. So thanks so much. And thanks to Ingrid, James and Min for jumping on the screen today, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, Phil.
Thanks, Bobby.